Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for tuning in for our student panel today. We're very excited to share a little bit about Northwestern and then also answer any questions that you might have about the university. What we'll start with is a brief condensed version of some information that we like to share about Northwestern. We'll introduce our student panelists, we'll be answering your questions, and then we'll be spending a majority of our time today taking questions from all of our listeners and then answering them and hopefully providing some clarification for any curiosities that are out there. If this is your first time tuning into a Northwestern information session, welcome. We're glad to have you. If you're a returner, welcome back. But it's great to see so many people here that are curious about what we have as Wildcats here in Evanston. So as an introduction on my end, my name is Drew Hazen. I'm a graduate admission counselor working for our Office of Admission, and I'm also a recent double alum of the university. I graduated with a master's degree from our School of Communication in just about a month ago and at the end of June. And I'm also a graduate as an undergraduate with the class of 2018. So a lot of perspective on the Wildcat experience, and I'm very excited for all of you to meet our student panelists as well. But first, I wanted to share just a little bit about what Northwestern has to offer as an institution. So to begin, Northwestern houses an undergraduate student population of about 8,000 students. And those students are representing all 50 states, as well as over 80 different countries worldwide. And that's important to mention right off the bat because that provides a tremendous amount of diversity on our campus as well as in our classrooms. And when we say diversity, we mean so in a traditional sense, but also that geographic diversity, that the fact that we pull students in from all over the world provides a great amount of diversity when it comes to thought, perspective, and experience. And that's important for the academic experience of our students because as you'll learn, a majority of our classes are smaller, discussion-based courses, meaning that in those smaller sessions, students are not only able to engage and learn from their professors, but their fellow classmates as well. And that really does benefit the academic learning of our students on campus. Northwestern as an institution houses 6 undergraduate schools. Those schools are the Weinberg College of Arts and Sciences, the McCormick School of Engineering and Applied Science, the School of Communication, the Beanan School of Music, the School of Education and Social Policy, and finally, the Medill School of Media and Integrated Marketing, Communications, as well as Journalism. And so those 6 schools represent a variety of different academic experiences for our students. Every student on campus is going to be housed in at least one of those schools. However, it's not uncommon to see students take classes in 4, 5, if not all 6 of the schools that are on our campus. It's definitely something that's very popular for students to try and just see what academic life is like across our campus. It's also nice knowing you'll have support from our faculty as well as our advisors on campus. For every academic discipline you pursue, you'll have a specialized advisor that's going to be helping with your career trajectory as well as the academic trajectory you'll have during your time at Northwestern. We have 1,200 full-time faculty as well, and each of those faculty is going to be hosting office hours for their students. That means with every class that you take at Northwestern, there will always be an opportunity for you to have a one-to-one conversation with your professor face-to-face so that way you can have any unanswered questions answered during your time in class. And another unique feature of our academic experience at Northwestern is that we function on a different academic schedule than most. Northwestern functions on a quarter system versus a semester system, which is most popular with other institutions. The key difference with that is that on Northwestern's quarter system, we have 3 academic periods across our school year, whereas most schools have 2 with semesters. Now, an immediate benefit to that is that students are taking less courses across their time for each of those quarters, I should say. However, but taking less classes more often leads to students having a greater number of classes by the time they graduate compared to if they had attended a semester institution. So for any students out there wanting to take multiple areas of study or curious about many things, the quarter system has a lot of benefit for you. It's also nice to know that you have flexibility in how you want to shape your academic experience. With that flexibility in those extra courses, maybe you're wanting to double major, even triple major. Maybe you're wanting to major and then have a minor, 2 minors as well. A minor is a smaller area of study, about 6 to 9 courses. Maybe you're wanting to take a major, a minor, and a certificate as well. A certificate is a little bit smaller than a minor. It's about 4 to 6 courses, and it's in a specialized area of study. The answer is that there's a lot of flexibility for you as a student to shape your classes however you're wanting to do so. Another important note, though, is not all of the learning happens in our classrooms, but there's a lot of learning happening outside of the classroom as well, and those will be taking place in our innovation spaces as well as our research spaces on campus. Think of our innovation spaces as opportunities for students to take their classroom learning and wrestle around with it, kind of in like a sandbox, to figure out new ideas and new approaches to whatever work they're wanting to do. Research also allows you to do that, and we want to make sure that students have plenty of support when they pursue research. Northwestern sets aside about $3.5 million every single year just for undergraduate research to ensure that there's opportunities for them. That can come in a variety of different forms. I would say the more popular option would be the Undergraduate Research Grant, or the URG, which allows students to work on a specific research project that they've participated in during their school year over the summer and work it as a full-time job. There's also opportunities with the URG to travel if you're doing research that has to be located elsewhere. Just plenty of opportunities both in traditional STEM fields, but also in non-traditional, non-STEM fields in the humanities, fine arts, whatever it may be. Just know there's plenty of opportunities for students to research regardless of your interest. Northwestern also supports students who are interested in studying abroad. There's over 150 different affiliated programs for students to choose from, which leads to about half of our student population having some sort of international experience during their time. About a third of our student population does your typical study abroad. And 2 important notes with that is that any financial aid you have at the university will travel with you and apply to study abroad costs. And additionally, any credits or courses that you accumulate while abroad will travel back with you and apply towards your degree progress. If you're wanting to work internationally, that's possible as well, although there's a lot of opportunities for students locally to pursue work or internships too. If you're looking for any sort of career support, know that Northwestern Career Advising, or the NCA, is going to be a great resource for our students. They're the ones that are hosting the job fairs across the year. They can also host you for resume workshops, mock interviews, whatever it may be. They're always going to be a great resource for students that are looking to jump into their professional field early, or have the connection and resources to kind of have those different things covered. Another great experience as being a Wildcat is that you are going to be living here during your time on campus. We have a 2-year on-campus living experience for all of our students, although you're more than welcome to stay for more time if you wish. There's plenty of different spaces and resources as well. We have our building set up in a residential area style, meaning you're able to share resources across different buildings, and it's also a great way to build community on campus as well. If you're not wanting to build community through our residential spaces, there's plenty of other opportunities as well, like our over 500 different student organizations, and that number keeps growing every single year because you're also able to make your own student organizations pretty easily as well. It's nice to have those opportunities to be able to explore and learn about different experiences on campus. Some of those organizations also connect to the greater Evanston areas or even the Chicago area as well, which we benefit from having both of those great communities so close to us here in Evanston. Now, I'd like to wrap up with a little bit of information on the financial aid process as well as the application process for our students. To begin, if any student is looking to apply to Northwestern, you'll begin building an application on either the coalition application or the common application. There is no explicit preference that we have. It's whatever's easiest for you and your family. Typically, whatever the high school supports is the one that would be best for you. On that application, you'll be including your transcript, the classes that you've taken, how you scored in those classes, how did you spend your time outside of the classroom, standardized tests, letters of recommendation, and then also a few essay prompts. An important note for any student that is applying for this application cycle, due to difficulties and challenges created due to the COVID-19 virus, we are test optional for our standardized test scores, meaning that for any students that are applying for the upcoming cycle, if you have not been able to schedule a standardized test due to difficulties and movement of testing dates, it is not required that you submit them. However, if a student has taken a standardized test score and wishes to present that in their application, they're able to do that as well. You'll note with all of the talk of applications, there's no mention of financial aid, and that's because students who are applying to the university, any domestic student is going to be read completely need blind. And that's because that any student who is admitted to the university is going to have 100% of their financial need met by Northwestern's resources. As a family, if they were seeking to receive financial support, you'd be filling out the free application for federal student aid, or the FAFSA, as well as the CSS profile, which would provide an accurate statement of a family's ability to contribute to their college experience. Any difference between the total cost of attendance at Northwestern and whatever a family is able to contribute, that difference is met in totality by Northwestern's resources. It's great to know that we never want finances to be a barrier for a student to attend the university if they're skilled enough to do so. If any of us are wondering how that affects our family and what our family's financial status would be as we approach the application process, I'd recommend going to our financial aid webpage and then looking for the net price calculator, which acts as a great starting point for that process. I hope sharing a little bit about the university has been helpful for some of us who are still learning about what we have to offer, but I do want to transition and make sure we hear a little bit from our panelists and what their experiences are and what questions they can help answer for all of you. So I've already introduced myself, but I'm going to pass it off to our student panelists. Elizabeth, why don't you start things off?
Yes, thank you so much, Drew, for that amazing introduction to Northwestern. Hi, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Bernstein. I am a recent graduate of Northwestern. I studied neuroscience and psychology in the Weinberg College of Arts and Sciences, and I am originally from New York City. Throughout my time at Northwestern, I have been involved in a couple of different opportunities on campus, whether that's working with admissions and all of the wonderful people on this panel, to my involvement with Camp Kesem and Greek life as well. I'm looking forward to helping to answer your questions today. Candace, do you want to go next?
Sounds good. Hi there, everyone. My name is Candace Leblanc. Like Elizabeth, I'm also a recent graduate of Northwestern. I graduated from the dual degree program, so I received a Bachelor of Arts in Creative Writing and a Bachelor of Music in Opera Performance. I was also involved in the Segal Visitors Center on campus, and I'm originally from Long Beach, California, which is where I'm coming to all of you now. And one of my favorite things that I was a part of during my time at Northwestern was our very thriving a cappella community. I was a part of a co-ed a cappella group known as the X Factors, and we got to perform every single quarter. And so I'm going to pass it off to Isaiah.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Isaiah. I am a fourth-year student from Nashville, Tennessee. I'm studying theater and creative writing, and one thing that I'm involved in on campus is I'm a writer for Northwestern's only sketch comedy / wrestling show, Wrestlepocalypse. So Alexis, you want to go next?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Hey everyone, my name's Alexis. I'm also a fourth year student from Miami, Florida. I study English literature and psychology as a double major, and apart from working at the Visitors Center, and the Office of Undergraduate Admissions, I'm also on the exec board for Northwestern World Cup, which is a club that organizes three soccer tournaments throughout the year, and we use that money that we raise to fundraise for underprivileged girls in Chicago to play soccer as well.
Wonderful. Thank you to all of our panelists for their introductions. And for any of our listeners, as a reminder, feel free to send us any questions you have. We want to make sure we can help solve any curiosities that you have today. To start, I'd love to tap two of our panelists to help share a little bit about their experience. We have some students who are curious about the difference between English literature as well as creative writing. I'm sure those are very similar, but also have some key differences as well. I'm curious if Candace and Alexis, if you could kind of talk a little bit on those. Candace, let's start with you.
Yeah, so for the creative writing major you actually apply to once you're already a Northwestern student. The earliest that you can apply is the spring quarter of your second year. And all you need to apply is just to have taken 3 of the intro writing courses, reading and writing, poetry, fiction, and nonfiction, which are our creative writing specializations here. And then you can use the final projects that you created in those courses to apply for the specialization that you'd like to have. And then from there, you can either be accepted as a major in one of those specializations, you can be accepted as a minor in one of those specializations, and you can also be accepted as a non-disciplinary minor where you're able to mix and match the differences between all of those different styles. And then from there, you're introduced into a year-long sequence where you'll work with a cohort of 12 to 14 students in a workshop-based writing environment. So that's kind of the more creative writing side of the creative writing major. In addition, also required in the creative writing major are upper level or 300 level English literature courses. So we get that balance of writing workshops, but also more traditional English literature education. And so Alexis can cover more of the English lit side.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So the English literature major has a few requirements. The first is that you either have to take British literary traditions 1 and 2 or American literary traditions 1 and 2. Those are like your introductory classes into English major. Those will be the largest classes that you take the entire time that you're within the major. Then you also have a 300 level seminar, which essentially it teaches you the practices of being able to read like critical work and stuff like this. And then to end the major, your final requirement is English 397, which is a research seminar where essentially you spend the entire quarter with other people who are completing the English major. And you'll essentially finish a 12 to 15 page research paper by the end of that. The entire quarter is dedicated to the one project. Then you'll take obviously an abundance of 200 level and 300 level English classes, but then there are requirements on when these classes, the topic of these classes will touch upon. So you have to take classes from before 1830, after 1830. You have to take at least one on American literature, and then there's 2 other specific requirements where you have to take one on transnationalism and textual circulation. I think it's a TTC requirement. And then there's also the ICSP requirement, which is where you explore identities, cultures, and social practices. So you'll get to kind of familiarize yourself with literature that maybe you wouldn't have read otherwise. And yeah, it's a really enjoyable major. So if you're thinking about English literature, I highly recommend.
Great. Thank you so much from both of our panelists. Isaiah, this next question is for you. We have some students who are curious about what opportunities or benefits exist for students to explore Evanston, the Chicagoland area. Are there ways for students specifically to travel around? Are there, discounts at all? Just speaking generally on what opportunities students have for the surrounding areas.
Yes, so Northwestern itself is located right at the heart of downtown Evanston, which incidentally is the dining capital of the North Shore. So if you like to eat, downtown Evanston is an amazing place to do that. If you take your wild card, which is the all access card that all Northwestern students get, you will get discounts at most restaurants in Evanston. So it's a great way to access those restaurants as well. If you want to get into Chicago, which most students do, I try to go into Chicago at least once or twice every week, which I'm pretty successful at doing, except in the winter it's a little bit harder to motivate to get down into the city when it's cold. But it's really easy to get into the city, actually. There is the L train, which is the main commuter train that services the whole city of Chicago. It actually has 3 different stops, each near different points on Northwestern's campus. So no matter where you are on campus, if you're in your residence hall or in a class at a different point on campus, you're about 5 minutes away from a stop on the Purple Line, which takes you straight to the Red Line, which takes you straight into downtown Chicago. Depending on where you're going in Chicago, you can probably get there within 20 to 40 minutes. So it's really easy to get into the city and get involved with the city. For example, I, as a theater major, have to go or get to go to a lot of shows in Chicago. All of those theaters offer student discounts, so I'm getting to see shows with exorbitant fees for full price tickets for between $5 and $20, which is amazing. All I have to do is show my wild card and I get into those shows. If you're interested in museums, those also have student discounts. Pretty much anywhere in Chicago has a student discount, and it's a great way to get involved with the city as a student at student prices, so you're not paying those prices that you would have to pay if you were a working professional, which none of us are as students. If you're interested in getting involved in the Chicago community as a Northwestern student, as part of your classes, one thing that I do want to highlight is a program where you can partner with the Office of undergraduate research and have a research position in Chicago during the school year or during the summer for class credit. I have a friend who did that 2 quarters ago. I didn't even realize he was doing it because he would just get on the train at the beginning of the day, go into the city. While I was in classes, he was working in the city, and then he'd be back on campus for the rest of the night doing his thing. So Northwestern really does provide these amazing opportunities for people to get involved in the city, whether that's part of your academic life, extracurricular life, or both.
Great. Really nice knowing that there's so many different options available for students. Candace, curious to hear from you next. We have some students who are curious about whether or not music students at Northwestern also pursue a second area of study. How do you find time to balance between your musical responsibilities and other academic responsibilities? If you'd want to share a little bit on that.
Yeah, well, off the bat, actually, around 75% of students in the Beaton School have an outside specialization. So I think that just shows how easy and accessible it is that as a music major, you're most definitely able to pursue an outside specialization. And part of that is that a lot of the musical extracurriculars that music students would want to be a part of or have to be a part of for classes, they're built into the curriculum. So for me as a performance major, one of my classes is the Beaton Contemporary Early Vocal Music Ensemble, or BCE for short. And that's an ensemble that meets 3 times a week, and we also perform multiple times during a quarter. And I'm getting academic credit for that and also getting performance experience underneath my belt. So a lot of the, quote, extracurriculars that I would want to be a part of are already built into the curriculum. And also, Beaton and Northwestern faculty are really understanding and allowing students to pursue outside things. So part of the distribution requirements that are across all the different schools, but the Weinberg College and the Beaton School of Music share the same distribution requirements. And so it's really often that students, while they're trying to do these distribution requirements, end up picking up an additional specialization just through having to take a natural sciences distribution requirement or a ethics and values distribution requirement. It's really easy to do that whether you're doing it as a full dual degree, which I did, or even as a double major, an additional minor or certificate.
Great. Thank you for that info, Candace. Coming up next, we'd love to hear a little bit from Elizabeth. Some students are curious about just generally what is our engineering program like? And then also in the field of engineering, but elsewhere, what do student internships look like as well?
Yeah, definitely happy to chat about that. Want to disclaim this answer by saying that I personally was not in the McCormick School of Engineering, but I have a lot of friends who have been. I've taken classes in McCormick as well. I think overall Northwestern takes a really whole brain approach to our engineering program. So making sure that our engineers not only are taking all of the mathematics and physics and all associated classes that they need to be successful in their specific discipline of engineering, but also making sure that they have a concentration outside of that, normally in the College of Arts and Sciences, that really helps to expand the breadth of their knowledge and their overall liberal arts education within a school of engineering. Additionally, Northwestern Engineering has something called the design the design thinking and communication sequence, which is a 2-quarter sequence that all first-year students will be a part of. And that helps to give them really hands-on engineering experiences, even just right off of the bat. One of my best friends, Leora, was an engineer, and one internship that she did last summer, she was biomedical engineering, was she did research at the Shirley Ryan Rehabilitation Institute downtown, and she did some really awesome projects on biosensors and biomonitors. And so that was a really exciting opportunity for her to combine that was biomedical engineering with all of the rest of what she was doing and put it all together to be sure to help those folks. I also know a lot of other friends. I have a friend who was a manufacturing and design engineering major. She is now working for Epic, which is the medical coding software that a lot of hospital systems use, which is probably more pertinent now than ever. But so that is just another example of what folks can do, both internships and kind of career-wise, those are only two small examples out of a very large undergraduate population with diverse interests and diverse engineering internships and opportunities. But yeah, definitely have had a lot of really awesome friends who've had great experiences in McCormick.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Next question, we're curious to hear a little bit from Alexis. We have some students who are wondering what one-on-one opportunities there are for students between themselves and their professors. We've already mentioned a little bit about how office hours can create that opportunity, but either sharing from personal experience or other more general info, what's it like to get to know our professors and our staff on campus one-on-one?
So the first thing I'll do is I'll touch a little bit more on office hours, because I think that they're an opportunity that people really overlook, because I mean, every professor has to hold them. So office hours are probably the best way that you can get to know your professor early on into the quarter, at least. You essentially get that one-on-one experience with your professor that you wouldn't be able to get during class necessarily, even in the smallest classes. 80% of classes here at Northwestern are 20 students or less, but even so, it's nice to have that moment where you can build that rapport with your professor. Speaking from personal experience, in one of my first introductory courses, British Literary Traditions 2 with Professor Jules Law, he did take the time to learn everyone's name. But it wasn't until I started frequenting his office hours that him and I really built what I would say is a really strong professional relationship. I've taken classes with him all throughout my time at Northwestern. At the onset of the COVID epidemic, he actually emailed me to check on how my family was doing and how everything was going with them. I've been in correspondence with him about admissions for his daughter, who's coming in as a first-year student this year. And that's just the type of relationship that you're able to build in college with professors who really do see you as an adult pursuing your education. Other opportunities that have been touched upon already are research opportunities, where you can actually do research under a professor who is currently teaching at Northwestern. I can give an example of this. One of my best friends, Courtney, took classes with a professor named Renee Engel. I think that's how you pronounce her last name. But she does a lot of research labs here on campus about, for example, the relationship between body image and social media usage. And Courtney was able to actually serve on those labs after having taken courses with her, which naturally builds even more of a relationship and has led to Professor Renee Engel actually taking on a mentorship role for Courtney's senior thesis in psychology. So these relationships are obviously very abundant, and they're kind of at your disposal when you come to Northwestern. And I would really strongly urge everybody listening, if you do come to Northwestern or wherever you may go, to obviously frequent office hours and build those relationships with your professors, because they really do pay dividends for your educational experience.
Thanks, Alexis. Elizabeth, heading to you next. It's important to note that Northwestern doesn't have an explicit business degree for students. However, there's obviously a lot of opportunities for students interested in business. Could you just talk generally about what a path or some paths could be for students interested in business after graduation?
Yeah, definitely. I know that our economics major is incredibly popular among students pursuing business interests. I have a good friend, Ross, who was an economics major and now works in investment banking. He's obviously a Northwestern grad as well. And so that was a really awesome path for him. But I think interwoven between the stories of a lot of my friends who have pursued business interests are really just experiences outside of the classroom. Honestly, Northwestern has over 500 different student organizations, and most of those student organizations have treasurers, they have development chairs, they have a lot of different positions that can give you exposure to business and really tangible experience without having even really done much of business classes or coursework, knowing that we don't have an undergraduate business school. Especially another really great highlight about that is that people can pursue those business interests within the context of whatever that may be. So if that is a student's deep passion for a cappella, they could be handling the finances of their a cappella group. And so just kind of different examples like that. I myself will actually be entering the business world after graduation. And as you might remember from my introduction, I mentioned nothing of any sort of involvement in economics or business at all. And so really just a great example of the fact that the skills you learn at Northwestern, both in the classroom with whatever you may be studying, whether that is neuroscience, or economics can lead you down a business path. We also have a very popular business institutions program minor within the College of Arts and Sciences, and then two very specifically focused certificates out of Kellogg as well. But overall, again, just want to reiterate that you do not have to do every certificate and the business institutions program minor to be successful and have opportunities to have a career in business after graduation.
Great to know that you have, any student can have a wide set of experiences during their time here. Up next to hear from Isaiah, we have some students who are interested in theater and wanting to know if you could just share a little bit about whether it's a favorite class, a program, or experience you've had during your time as a student in theater.
Yes, amazing question. So the thing that I have appreciated the most about my theatrical experiences at Northwestern is the opportunities that each of those different processes that I've been involved in has provided for students outside of the major to come in and be involved in theater. The reason that I chose to study theater in a liberal arts environment rather than, or one of the many reasons why I chose to not go to a conservatory and instead go to a school like Northwestern and study theater in a liberal arts environment was because I knew that I wanted to be surrounded by people who also were not involved in theater in any way, not because I don't like theater, but because I knew that it was important for me to get those kinds of perspectives and to just not be entrenched in people only thinking about theater all the time. And what that has blossomed into is a lot of relationships with people who are passionate about theater but are maybe pursuing other things with their lives. One of my best friends that I've met doing a show at Northwestern actually is an econ major. She just auditioned for a show, got in, did several more shows, but is pursuing econ with her life. And I love that example because I think it represents not only how diverse the theater community is in terms of different majors and different people who are getting involved, but also how accessible it is and how easy it is to get involved even if you're not a theater major. One of the things that I always tell people is that you don't have to be completely involved in the theater major to be a theater major. I have a lot of friends who maybe are in the acting sequence but know that they want to go into pre-med later on, so it's really easy to sort of straddle both of those worlds at Northwestern in the liberal arts environment that we provide. I do just want to mention, in terms of extracurriculars, we have 9 theater boards on campus, each of which has a full season that they put on. We do over 80 student productions every year, plus more than 10 main stage shows every year. Each of those student productions is entirely student run, so student directors, student costume designers, student actors, and there just simply aren't enough theater majors to go around and fill those roles. So if you are involved in theater at Northwestern, you will be very much in demand, which is something that I have really appreciated because it really does feel like a community where you're working with your friends, and because there are so many opportunities, it's really hard to be competitive, honestly, because everybody's going to end up in a different spot with so many opportunities at their disposal.
Great. Thank you so much, Isaiah. Coming up next, I'd love to hear a little bit from Alexis. There's plenty of great student traditions that we have here on our campus. Curious if you could just mention a handful, maybe your favorites, things that you like participating in, just to give a sense of scale for any students out there listening.
Sure, yeah. So I guess I'll go with the thing that's like most popularly known, and then I'll touch on some niche stuff that I think is a little funny. Actually, one I just learned about like 2 weeks ago because I had never experienced it. So first one I'll touch upon is the Rock. It's at the center of what I would call one of the main parts of campus where University Hall is, Harris Hall, and Kresge Centennial Hall. Right in the middle there is the Rock. And people paint it all the time, wedding proposals, fundraising events, when people want to bring something to light that they might think is like a social issue. It's really incredible to walk by and you see something new all the time. And what's so great about it is that it is a lasting tradition. If you Googled like Northwestern, the Rock Cam, you can just look at it and see what people have done, whatever's the most up to date currently. It's a 24-hour live stream, I think. And when you paint it, you actually have to defend it, right? Nobody's actually going to come take the rock or paint over you, but you have to camp out there and make sure nobody does. And that tradition actually really holds. You'll see tents next to the rock all the time whenever somebody paints it. And I think that's really great because it's been going on for so long and people, keep up with it still. Another great tradition is at the culmination of Welcome Week, you have that football game where you're able to kind of storm the field as a first year class, which I think is it's so fun. And you kind of just get to look up and see everybody that's about to watch the game. It's you guys all in purple. You have a student section where everybody's going to be sitting. It really like kind of emboldens that sense of camaraderie that you get just from coming to Northwestern. Another one that I think is great is kind of as a sign of solidarity. Finals week comes around. You see somebody who's just like really going through it. They're really struggling. You don't have to say anything to them, right? You're on the same wavelength. So you just kind of throw up the paw, and they'll throw the paw back at you with whatever face they have that, is just going through it. And it feels great to know that other people also know, everybody's kind of doing the same thing at that time. And then the one that I just recently learned about that I think is pretty funny that I'll mention, apparently this happens a lot with engineering students, STEM students in general, but I think it's at the middle of finals week. They'll just like crack open a window, scream for like 15 seconds, and then just go back to working. And people say that they'll just like stand up, scream, and then sit back down and work again. And apparently it's a great stress reliever. I had never done it. I had never really heard it, but apparently it happens. So just tons of things that people do to kind of show solidarity, unity on campus.
Exactly. The primal scream is one of our finer traditions, I will say. Very important to know that it takes place at, I believe, 9 p.m. the Sunday before finals week starts. That's an important date to know because if you don't know, you'll be very surprised when a lot of people around you all start screaming at the same time. Not that that was a personal experience of mine, just as a setup for any students in case you're curious about that. Heading to Isaiah for this next question. We have some students who are curious, what's something that surprised you about your Northwestern experience that you learned when you arrived to campus? What's something unexpected that you experienced or learned from?
Yeah, one thing that surprised me is I, in high school, was always fed this narrative that like college is going to be the place where you go to work and you go to sort of get all of these skills that are going to help you in your professional life, and that's what college is. College is going to be 4 years of doing that, which is definitely true, but I was really surprised by what that meant for outside of the classroom. I came to college being like, okay, my classes are going to be where I'm going to be learning all this stuff, where I'm going to be meeting people, and classes are going to be the number one thing that I remember about college. And I'm sure that's true for some people. That has not been my experience. For me, classes have been amazing and important, but it's the people that I've met from my residence hall, the people that I've met in my extracurriculars, the people that I've met in the Norris Student Center or in the library working on projects or just sitting in Starbucks and waiting for somebody else to come for a meeting or something that have really played an instrumental role in defining my Northwestern experience. One of my best friends at Northwestern is somebody that I met on day 2 of Wildcat Welcome, our orientation week. I would never have met her if we didn't live in the same residence hall. We don't take the same classes. We don't do the same extracurriculars. It would have been very easy for our paths to never converge. But the fact that we lived in the same residence hall and our residence hall had so many amazing programs to meet the people that you live with and get involved going to the city with the people that you live with. Because of that, we were able to form a really amazing relationship that I'm so thankful for to this day. So I think that's been the most surprising aspect, is how rich my college experience has been. Outside of the classroom, how many amazing skills and techniques I will take into my career and my life that have not solely been formed or have not been informed in any way by what I've learned in class. That's not to say that classes aren't amazing and vital, but there is such a broad range of experiences that you will accumulate outside of the classroom that will play just as strong a role in defining your college experience and who you are when you graduate.
Incredible. We love making friends here at Northwestern. It's great to hear about your special relationship with your day 1 or day 2, even some of those friends. So thank you for sharing a little bit on that. Candace, hoping to hear from you a bit next. Could you share just a little bit more information about study abroad opportunities or anecdotes that you have to share?
Definitely. So the first thing I like to point out with study abroad is that here at Northwestern, all of your financial aid will also go abroad with you. And then on top of that, no matter what your academic specialization is, if you are a dance major, an engineer, an international studies major, we have academic advisors across all the disciplines to make sure that when you're taking classes abroad, that your classes are going to count. So studying abroad shouldn't be a question of if you can afford it or if you can graduate on time, but just truly a question of where. In fact, for me this past fall, I got the chance to study abroad in Milan, Italy in a music program and also working as a writing correspondent for the program that I was going abroad with. So I was able to mix both of my academic specializations while studying abroad. The most popular time that students choose to go to abroad is the fall term of their junior year. What's really great is that since we're on the quarter system and a lot of study abroad programs are on semester-based systems, we're actually able to get more academic credits through studying abroad than if we had stayed on campus. So for me, through taking a semester abroad during my 5th year as a dual degree student, I actually had the opportunity to almost graduate a full quarter early if I had chosen to do so.
Great to hear. It's nice knowing that those opportunities are plentiful for students, even if you're not interested upon arrival to campus. Nice knowing that those options are going to be there. This next question is a little more administrative, so I'll go ahead and answer it. We have some students who are curious about the process of submitting letters of recommendation and which letters we should be sending, and do students benefit from having more or less? What I'll say on that is that we do require at least 2, a minimum of 2, which should be coming from your high school guidance counselor, as well as a teacher from a core subject area. So think along the lines of math, English, or science. So the mention is that there is a minimum of 2. Technically, there is no maximum. However, my one piece of advice on this is that it's really important with your letters of recommendation that you are sharing a story about yourself that isn't represented yet on your application. So an example of that would be if there's a student who really excels in their math and they have excellent math skills and they want to be able to apply those math skills during their time at Northwestern. We're going to notice those skills during your review of your academic transcripts. And if you have a math teacher write your letter of recommendation sharing how great of a student you were and how you always scored well, that tells us a specific story. But if you have another, or maybe 2 or even 3 more math teachers all share that same story, that would be an example of quantity not equaling quality, because we're hearing the same story over and over. So think about ways that if you haven't already expressed a skill or an experience on your application, what individuals could speak to that. Maybe that's a community leader that you've worked with. They could speak to your experience outside of the classroom. Same goes if you would want to have an employer write you a letter of recommendation to speak to your work ethic on non-academic related tasks. Just be aware that try not to be redundant, I guess is the best way to say what I'm saying. Try to avoid the same story told through many different recommendation letters. Think of different individuals who would be able to speak to different aspects of your personality as an applicant. Now, for this next question, we'll head back to Candace. Curious to hear, we have some students looking for just some general advice, and I thought I'd throw it to some of our recent graduates. For Candace specifically, what was like one takeaway that you've learned from your time at Northwestern that you're walking away with now?
Ooh, this is hard. Okay, racking over the past 5 years, but it's actually something that I learned from one of my favorite classes I took at Northwestern, which is in our smallest school, the School of Education and Social Policy. It's one of the more famous courses at Northwestern called Building Loving and Lasting Relationships, Marriage 101. And I took this course last year, and the professor, Dr. Solomon, always talks about how vulnerability is the key to connection. And that, of course, is true in romantic relationships, but also in general conflict resolution, whether it's in the workplace or with friends. And for me, I've found that when I look back about my Northwestern experience, what has made it so special are the people that when I allow myself to be most vulnerable and be most authentically me, those are the times when my friends cherished me the most, whether it was celebrating a success of getting into a performance role that I really wanted, or being upset about family issues of me being at school 2,000 miles away from home. I've learned that Northwestern Wildcats, yes, we are, academically very interested, and we do so many different extracurriculars and hobbies, but I think what makes Northwestern Wildcats the best is that we care about each other, and it's something that I will take with me definitely for the rest of my life.
A great piece of advice, not just for that class, but across life as well. So thank you for sharing. Up next, we'd love to hear a little bit from Elizabeth. Could you talk just briefly on what sustainability looks like on Northwestern's campus and what that means for students?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely think Northwestern has made a really concerted effort and been really intentional with the ways that it has tried to implement sustainability efforts to Northwestern, whether that's panels, all of the different reminders to do all the things we should be doing, like turn off lights, really, really big push for recycling, and all of those kind of classic things that you'll see, but also all of the like new buildings going up are all pretty much the highest level of LEED certifications, which is an environmental certification about like buildings and how well they function on energy. My dad's an architect, so I happen to hear a lot about these kinds of things from him. But also, there is the Institute for Sustainability and Energy. My friend Simone got their certificate as an undergraduate, and it's a really great interdisciplinarily focused program on how to best like figure out the intersection of energy, sustainability in coursework, and really how to implement and apply some of these practices in a broader sense to all sorts of different industries after graduation.
Thank you so much for that answer. Alexis, to hear from you next. You had mentioned that you're involved in NU World Cup, so a great way to stay active and stay fit. At Northwestern, could you expand out and just talk a little bit more about what other athletic opportunities we have, whether that's through intramurals, club sports, if you could speak a little bit on that?
I'd be happy to. So I would say that there's like three levels of athletics at Northwestern. So you have like intramural athletics, club athletics, and then varsity athletics. So I'll speak first about intramural athletics. So throughout your year at Northwestern, fall, winter, and spring quarters, which will definitely be the majority of time that people spend on campus, there will be seasonal sports that are kind of catered for what the weather will allow. So naturally in winter, it would be difficult to have like outdoor soccer, for example. So that occurs in the spring, etc. These seasonal schedules can be found at NUIM if you were to Google that. But they offer basketball, softball, soccer, football, anything that you could think of. They play. It's really incredible. It's a really, really good time. People have a lot of fun. I've done pretty much every intramural sport that you could think of, and I've never had a bad experience. People definitely understand that it's for fun, which is also really positive. One thing that I would really like to say about intramurals is how easy it is to find a team. So people talked about where they lived and how much that affected, their experience at Northwestern. And I would say that's definitely the case when it comes to intramurals as well. I lived in a residential college, so it's a smaller place, but since you kind of know everyone, it's similar people that are going to be out there for each intramural sport. You're going to build such camaraderie with these people just being teammates. In intramurals, there are three different categories for a lot of sports. So there's co-ed, and then in certain sports like soccer, for example, there's white league and then purple league for varying levels of intensity or difficulty, you'd say. Moving on from intramural athletics, there's club athletics. If you're looking for something that's a little bit more serious, these teams do practice, but most of them are actually student run, which is really, really cool. You have, club soccer, club tennis, club baseball, pretty much anything that you could think of that's a varsity athletic, you're also able to play at a club level. What's great about club athletics is that it's less of a time commitment than varsity athletics, but if you're still looking to compete, that's definitely an avenue for you. One cool fun fact about club athletics is that Northwestern doesn't have a men's varsity fencing team. So if you're actually on club fencing, you are fencing at a varsity level. So you're going to be fencing against Duke, Air Force, UCLA, Notre Dame, whatever, all these elite schools. You're going to get that D1 competition without the level of commitment that would have been required of you. So that's one avenue if you're looking for an opportunity to compete. Then naturally, varsity sports, Big Ten school, really incredible programs all around. Athletics going on all throughout the year. Northwestern really cares about actually making their students come to games, which is a lot of fun. They'll bus you there. You obviously get free admission. That's Big Ten athletics for free, which is great. Lots of sports going on all year. And so that's obviously a lot of fun. If you're somebody who is so inclined to try to walk on, that's obviously an opportunity for you. But I would say that the majority of people are going to take that spectator role when it comes to varsity athletics. And it really is a really enjoyable time. Another way I know that I've touched upon it, but another way that, Northwestern kind of rallies around each other and sponsors that or I should say foments that campus unity, would be through, rallying around our sports teams.
Great. Thank you so much, Alexis. Up next to hear from Isaiah, you've mentioned a bunch of different opportunities for students that are interested in theater or performance and what the experience of a student in theater is like. Could you talk about those opportunities, but from the lens of a non-major? What is it like for students who aren't a theater major or performance major to be involved in those activities on campus?
Yeah, so let me just start off by saying that if you are not a theater major, the only things that you cannot access are certain specific theater classes. Not even all the theater classes, but if we're talking about the acting sequence or upper level theater courses, those are not going to be available to non-majors. Everything else is available to non-majors. So we're talking about the general auditions that are how we cast those 80 plus shows every year. There's one every quarter to cast the shows for the next quarter. So if you miss one generals, you can still be involved in shows for the quarter after that. If you want to be on a theater board, that is totally available. Though all positions on theater boards are open to non-majors. I know of several people on one of the 9 theater boards who are not majors, including people who are the artistic or executive director of those boards. So you can be in an upper level theater position as an undergraduate student if you're not a major. In general, the theater major is an amazing place to be if you want to do theater. I certainly would recommend it if you're going to do theater after graduation. But I know plenty of people who are planning on getting their MFAs in acting or pursuing theater as their career who were not theater majors, who did not have access because they weren't theater majors to those upper level courses. So yes, being a theater major is an amazing way to get involved in theater, as I'm sure you can imagine. But if you want to be involved in theater but are not a major for whatever reason, I cannot stress enough how little that prohibits you from being involved in theater in any capacity, whether it's as an actor, as a performer in another capacity, being behind the scenes, being up in the ceiling doing the lights, or whatever you need to do. It is so easy to get involved in theater. You will, if you express any interest in theater at any point, you will be begged by everybody you know in the theater to be involved over the course of the next 4 years. I really do promise you that.
Great. Nice to know there's those opportunities for majors and non-majors alike. The unfortunate news is that we are winding down with the time that we have left together. So an important question that I'd love to throw to one of our panelists is a very important question for us here at Northwestern. Why Northwestern? So why this institution over anywhere else? It's an important question for us because it's actually one of the essay prompts that students will fill out during their application. So I'm going to pass the mic over to Elizabeth to hear a little bit of her story and why she decided on Northwestern.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Drew. So for me, I was looking for a place that was mid-sized, near a big city, kind of checked all of my boxes, but there are a lot of mid-sized institutions and there are an overwhelming number of institutions that can teach you general chemistry and at which you can complete the pre-med coursework. So something that I have really realized throughout the last 4 years at Northwestern is that it is the people that make the place so special. The classes and the framework of the institution are obviously amazing, but it is really the people. And I think something that I thought a lot about and I reflect on a lot now is that I would really encourage students to think about a place where they can not only be happy at their best, but where they can also feel really supported and really loved and welcomed when they're at their worst. College has been an amazing 4 years, but that does not mean that I have not failed my fair share of exams, had my fair share of personal family things happen, and it has been truly such an overwhelmingly supportive and loving community that has helped to kind of rally around me and pick me up at my lows so that I can return to those high points again. I think that the people are so caring, and the sense of community that we have at Northwestern is truly unique and truly special. And the fact that I have been able to attend so many super fun improv shows, also go to robotics competitions, and just also things I never thought I would do, largely in pursuit of supporting friends who have asked me to come, has been a really awesome opportunity. And I've really enjoyed getting to know all the people and being a part of this wonderful.
Incredible. Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for that honest answer. And thank you to all of our other panelists for answering everyone's questions today. We really appreciate your time and your experience and wisdom. For all those who are with us and learning more about the university, we want to thank you for spending your time with us today. We hope we've been helpful and been able to provide some answers. If you have not done so, we highly recommend subscribing to our YouTube channel so that way you can keep up with any updates that are going to be presented for students. There's plenty of other information there as well. If you're looking for other information sessions, if you're looking for specific information about arts on campus, about STEM on campus, whatever it may be, know that we have those resources available. Wherever our listeners are today, we hope that you are safe, healthy, and happy and surrounded by loved ones. So thank you once again for spending time with us. We are going to send all of you off and hope that you all have the best of days. Thank you again for joining us, and